or welcome back to my channel, String Things by Mel. My name is Melissa. I'm a stay-at-home mom living in Vancouver, Canada, and on my channel I chat and share everything about my knitting hobby. Today I'm back with another pattern comparison video. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this format, what I do is I choose 3 patterns which look very similar and take information that it's publicly available from Ravelry and try to see what's different between the 3. This is meant to be a fun exercise, a way of practicing looking at patterns and finding information and the attributes in a garment pattern that mean the most to you, meaning what does this pattern have that's going to ensure that you have an enjoyable experience, depending on which one you decide to knit up. So the 3 patterns that I have today are all striped sweaters, and those 3 patterns are the Sibling Sweater My Size from Laura Penrose, the Spirit Week Stripes from Park Williams, and the Stripe Pipe Sweater from Veronika Lindberg. Now, I also want to mention that the 3 patterns that I've chosen, I'm not sponsored. This is not endorsement of any patterns, nor is this meant to be a shaming of any of the patterns or designers. So again, trying to keep this a fun exercise. Looking at these 3 patterns, they are incredibly similar looking. All 3 feature crew necks, all have drop shoulders, and are constructed seamlessly from the top down. So I'm going to go into the individual details for each pattern. I have my laptop out with me, so I am going to be kind of looking up and down at the information. Let's go ahead. Oh, and the information that I have in a spreadsheet, I will leave a link to that if you guys want to look at that. So let's get started with the first pattern, which is the Sibling Sweater My Size from Laura Penrose. I was part of the test group for this pattern, so I can offer a little bit more insight about the experience of this pattern, but I won't be revealing any details that I shouldn't because it is a paid pattern. So the Sibling Sweater My Size is the adult version of the Sibling Sweater, which is a children's garment pattern from Laura Penrose. This one, the description from Laura, the back neck is cast on and worked flat with increases to shape the shoulders. Front, left, and right panels are picked up and worked flat before joining at the neck. Front and back panels are joined and the body is worked in the round. Sleeves and collar are picked up and worked in the round and designed to be long and cozy. Now that might seem like a bit of a mouthful, but this is a construction that's very typical of drop shoulders, and I believe it's very similar construction across all 3 sweaters. So if you can imagine, the back of the sweater kind of grows into this wedge or trapezoidal shape for this particular one. There are no short rows in the pattern, and that kind of shaping is done by increases and decreases. Now, what is a defining feature about Laura's pattern, the Sibling Sweater My Size, is that there is quite a distinct detail along the shoulder. So there's a bit of a band in which the striping continues in there as well. And that is what is different or unique from the other 2 patterns. The collar is a fold over crew neck. You can, of course, not do a fold over, but that is another unique characteristic of this pattern compared to the other 2. This pattern is available in 10 sizes labeled 1 to 10. The finished bust circumference is 34¼ inches to 69¼ inches, or 87 centimeters to 176 centimeters. The notes on this pattern say that this sweater can be worn with any amount of ease, but it is recommended to have at least 2 inches or 5 centimeters of positive ease. So if we take that into account, the actual bust circumference or the body circumference that this sweater is designed for is 32 1/4 inches to 67 1/4 inches, or 82 centimeters to 171 centimeters. The measurements that are provided on the sales page on Ravelry are chest circumference, body length, upper arm circumference, and sleeve length. The gauge for the sibling sweater my size is 21 stitches by 32 rows, and the needle size is 4 millimeters for the main work, 3.5 millimeters for the ribbing, and this one uses DK weight yarn. This one features 1 by 1 rib for the collar, cuffs, and the hem of the body. Let's move to the next pattern. The stripe pipe sweater is a great stash busting project where you can use up scrap yarns or combine your favorite colors in just the way you want. And with the different colors that you see in the stripe pipe sweater, it definitely gives that look of stash busting. Whereas Laura's pattern, the sibling sweater my size, it's much more intentional. It's a 2-color stripe sweater. But you can, of course, and you can see tester photos of people who used multiple colors for that. The instructions are for 2 colors though, so if you need guidance on when to change for other colors, you just have to keep in mind the different row counts. So just like the sibling sweater my size, the stripe pipe sweater starts by working the back flat. And stitches are picked up for the left and front separately, worked flat, and then everything's joined together and the body is worked in the round. Stitches are picked up for the sleeves and worked in the round. And lastly, stitches are picked up around the neckline and the collar is worked in a twisted rib stitch. And this is what makes this pattern unique, is the 1 by 1 twisted rib on the collar, the cuffs, and the hem of the body. This one does not have a fold over collar. This one has just a single layer crew neck, and it does feature kind of a little pop of color on the edge of the crew neck. You can, of course, omit that if you don't want to have that. This pattern is offered in 9 sizes labeled extra small to 5XL. The finished bust circumference range is 35.5 inches to 70 inches, or 90 centimeters to 178 centimeters. The recommended ease is 8 to 12 inches or 20 to 30 centimeters. And so after taking into account the recommended positive ease, the actual bust circumference range is 23.5 inches to 58 inches, or 60 centimeters to 158 centimeters. So with this one, greater amount of positive ease. So it does go down to a smaller body circumference, but given that the positive ease is greater than the sibling sweater, the body circumference does not go as high, and it only goes to 58 inches, whereas Laura's pattern went to 67 1/4 inches. Measurements listed on the sales page is bust circumference, body length, sleeve length, upper sleeve circumference, and cuff circumference. The gauge for this pattern is 20 stitches by 31 rows and uses 4 millimeter needles for the main work and 3 millimeter needles for the ribbing. This one is also knit using DK weight yarn. So save yarn weight as a sibling sweater my size, but the gauge is 1 stitch larger, and uses smaller needles for the ribbing. So it's twisted rib, so it's already going to be tighter than regular 1 by 1 rib, and then add that it's in even smaller needle size. So the look of this one is definitely going for a tighter cuff, maybe a little bit more cinching in for the body. You can adjust that. If you still want to do twisted rib, maybe just stick with 3.5 millimeter needles if you don't want your ribbing to look that tight. Let's move on to the third and the final pattern, the Spirit Week stripes from Park Williams. Also goes by Park and Knit. Her description of her pattern: the pep rallies have begun. A chill has entered the air. The season of studying, football games, pumpkin patches, and Spirit Week is finally here. Spirit Week Stripes is a drop sleeve sweater knit from the top down with short row shaping for the shoulders, simple striping, and a relaxed fit. So again, a top down drop shoulder pattern with a crew neck, and like the stripe hype sweater, this one does not have a fold over collar. No contrasting color in this one. And this pattern is available in 9 sizes labeled extra small to 5XL. The finished bust circumference range is 36 inches to 68 inches, or 91.5 centimeters to 172 and a quarter centimeters. The recommended ease is 4 to 8 inches of positive ease, or 10 to 20 centimeters. So after taking into account the recommended ease, the actual bust circumference range is 28 inches to 60 inches, or 71.5 centimeters to 162 and a quarter centimeters. There are no measurements listed on this pattern sales page. The gauge for this one is 16 centimeters by 26 rows, uses 5.5 millimeter uses 5.5 millimeter needles for the main work and 4.5 millimeter needles for the ribbing. And this one is knit up with worsted weight yarn. Slightly chunkier yarn, and then the stripe pipe sweater and the sibling sweater my size. This one has 1x1 rib, just like the sibling sweater my size. This pattern lists short rows. Now, just because the stripe pipe sweater did not note short rows doesn't mean there aren't any, but I haven't done the pattern and I haven't purchased it, so I can't confirm that there are or not short rows for stripe pipe. But short rows are explicitly noted on the pattern page for this one. What I like to do in comparing drop shoulder patterns is to look at the back of the sweater. Depending on the construction, there could be just a different details, a different shape, and that is definitely the case between these three. So as I mentioned, the sibling sweater my size has, quite defined bands, for lack of a better word, along the shoulder lines, and this one was created with a trapezoid shape, so they do kind of point downwards, down the towards the arm. The stripe pipe sweater and the Spirit Week stripes have very, very similar look to the back. For all I know, they are constructed the same with short rows or with increases. There's no defining line between where the front and the back join. So this one has both the stripe pipe and the Spirit Week have very smooth transition between the front and back. So that might be something you prefer over the distinct band of the sibling sweater my size. So how to choose between the three? This one is tricky. All three patterns have been tested and have a decent number of projects to view on Ravelry if you have access to that. You can also search the hashtags for all three on Instagram if you need some further inspiration. So what is really going to make you choose one or the other? So I'll speak a little bit about my experience with the sibling sweater my size, and this one is more so because I would consider myself a bit of a loose knitter, and I had difficulty reaching, in particular, row gauge for Laura's pattern, and I had to size down quite a bit to get that 32 rows per 4 inches or 10 centimeters. So seeing that Veronika Lindberg's pattern, or Kika, she also on YouTube, she's Kuda Kika. Forgot to mention that earlier. Seeing that her pattern, it's just a 1 stitch difference, but I feel like I could hit exact gauge with not as small of needles that I had to use for the sibling sweater my size. So I had to use 3.25 millimeter needles for my knit rows, and 3.5 millimeter needles for my purl rows. And the difference in needle size is because I had some rowing out, so I had to do that when working flat. Um, would I have to still go down in needle size for the stripe pipe sweater? I'm not sure, but based on my experience, maybe not as small. You know, aesthetically, do I like the twisted rib or do I like the fold over collar? Um, I feel like sometimes the fold over collar could look a little bit heavy, but it is very squishy. It's very cozy. You don't have to use the twisted rib that is seen on the stripe hype sweater. Also, you don't have to do regular 1x1 rib on the Sibling sweater. Those are things that um, you can change, and it's totally knitter's preference. If you want something that might knit up a little bit quicker and you're okay with something that might be a little bit heavier or a bit warmer, depending on the fiber that you choose, the Spirit Week stripes may be the better option for you because that one is knit with worsted weight yarn and 5.5 millimeter needles. Overall, these drop shoulder striped sweaters look very similar. Um, if you're still not sure which one to choose between these three, I recommend going through more photos from other testers or other people who have knit up and just see, look at the sleeve shape, for example. There's no indication about decrease rate on these patterns, and there's no one standing just like this in the sales page because I guess that doesn't really sell well. But looking at the sleeve shaping, maybe that's going to help you choose which one to knit up. Some advice or recommendations before embarking on knitting a striped sweater. I find that row gauge is very important to hit or be very close to. If you are going to make any sort of length modifications, especially in the sleeves, and depending on how you want your striping colors to end, that might mean adding or removing two stripes. So for example, in the Sibling sweater, my size, how the striping works is that you have the contrast color is the last stockinette color, and then the ribbing is your main color. So looking at the photos, you have black stripe, and then the ribbing is in this kind of cream color. If you want to maintain that look, but you want to make your sleeves longer or shorter, then that means removing two full stripes. And that would be the same for the other two patterns as well. Some of you might be thinking, but which pattern would I choose to knit? Now, given that I've already knit the Sibling sweater my size and I received that pattern for free, um, I'm the type that I'm not a big pattern repeater. However, that doesn't mean I wouldn't recommend the Sibling sweater my size. But I am personally curious about, or more likely to knit up the stripe pipe sweater because I like using DK weight yarn. Also, if you have fingering scraps in your stash, then you can hold that double. And that is something I like because I typically have mostly fingering and DK weight yarn in my stash. I don't have a lot of worsted. Um, so I think if I were to choose a pattern, it would be the stripe pipe sweater. That's it for today's pattern comparison video. Let me know if you have any questions down below or any other information to add that could help anyone who may be considering either of these patterns. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.